What's up, everyone? Welcome back down to Ice Level. As always, I am your host, James Blennau. This week we have a Frozen 4 preview special episode. We're joined by College Hockey News' Anthony Travaglia and Jacob Cheris. And at the start of the episode, Associate Head Coach of Western Michigan, Jason Herter, will be joining us to answer a few questions about the team and about the Frozen 4. So let's get right into the episode. All right, we're here with Western Michigan Associate Head Coach Jason Herter. We're gonna get right into the questions. Jason, thanks so much for being here. Let's start with what's the vibe around the locker room right now heading into the Frozen Four?
Well, obviously, kids are excited, right? The big thing for us is to keep them grounded. There's 2 games left in the year, possible 2 games. We've always approached it. We've had the next game approach all season. Let's worry about the next game and not the next weekend after that. So I think we've got them grounded. On the coaching side, it's we don't want to give them too much. Like we got to treat this like every other game, even though it's not, or else the kids will have a reason to get nervous, and we don't want to give them one.
Who do you think is, in terms of the players, the best leader to keep everybody calm?
Well, I think it starts just, I think it starts from the top down as far as our coaching staff. If we start getting jittery and over excited, then the kids are not as focused as they should be. And I think we got some good veteran leadership, and they're all in the same boat together because even our transfers have never been there before. Even the kids that transferred in. So it's a path they're all walking together for the first time. So I think that they're all trying to find their way together.
Do you feel like that togetherness gives you a sort of chemistry advantage in
No,
these games?
you know what? I think all the teams that are there right now are the same as far as
Mhm.
any advantage they may have or may not have. I think I've been fortunate enough that this is my fourth trip, first at Western Michigan. So I remember my old boss Scott Sandlin saying, we just don't change anything. And I'll give you an example. I think we were playing a Wednesday was one of our practices, and you get like 45 minutes. And every Wednesday in Duluth, we basically played a seven or sorry, everybody versus everybody game of three puck. And normally the game takes 10 minutes, and we've devised 3 or 4 drills, leave 10 minutes at the end. Well, this one took 27 minutes. For whatever, it went to overtime. So we're on the bench as coaches going, okay, we got to come up with 2 of our 5 drills. We got to knock this down because we got to leave time at the end for the guys. And we didn't change anything. We didn't, and that was just part of it. And our guys just felt calm because it was just another week.
Yeah, how does that consistency help you in your matchup against a known opponent like Denver?
Well, first of all, I think that helps us not be nervous because we've seen them so many times, right? So our kids should have confidence. We've beaten them. So I think that that's huge for our group going into this week of having they should be confident. Every team going in should be confident because they won their last 2 games, right? And so they should all be confident. But I think for us not being there before, having a common or an opponent that we know within our league, I think that helps the jitters out of our rookie group.
Yeah, let's talk about Hampton for a second. Hampton Slakinski, your starting goalie. For those of you who aren't familiar with him, he's made some incredible saves in the regionals so far. He's had a great season for Western Michigan. What kind of confidence does he give your team and especially your defense between the pipes?
Well, first of all, we just went with Hampton. I think it might be 4 weeks ago where we stopped alternating our goalies. We just decided, excuse me, to go with him, and that is what it is. But Cam Rowe, on the other hand, he's had a fantastic year. I think he's only lost 1 game, and he had a 920 something save set. So we've had a great goaltending duo. Hampton himself, as a rookie, brings a calmness back there that I haven't seen before. It just nothing phases him. He just goes about his business and does his job. And you're not talking to a goalie coach, so I don't know if that's good or bad, but it seems to be working.
No, yeah, definitely. It seems like the strategy going into this whole thing is just calm, cool, collected, and it's really a great thing to have going into such a high pressure environment, especially when St. Louis is so close to Kalamazoo.
Yes, and the biggest voice I've had to the kids, and the one thing you got to go and enjoy it too. You can't be so strung out. Like this is hard to do, and it took us 50 years to do it once. Obviously we're a better program now than we have been over all the 50 years, but it's still hard to do. You look at Boston College, Michigan State, like they're not there, and we know how good they are. And there's several teams in that same boat. So getting an opportunity to do this. The kids need to understand how hard it is. The parents coming down there need to understand how hard it is. The fans already know how hard it is. So they need to enjoy it to some aspect. Go take care of business, but still enjoy your time.
Yeah, just one more question before I open it up to these other guys.
All right.
The Lawson Lunatics have been absolutely outstanding this year. They're one of my favorite student sections to look at in college hockey. How does it feel to have their support behind you throughout this whole run?
Well, I spend sometimes on the bench laughing from some of the stuff that comes out of their mouth. Thank God I'm across the ice from them because if I could hear if they were behind me and I could hear most of what they say, I don't know if I'd get much coaching done. They are fantastic. They care. They got their own website. They make their own T-shirts and they have their own giveaways. It's like a private business. But man, do they have fun at the hockey games.
All right, Jacob and Anthony, if you guys have
Yeah.
anything, you can go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I'll start. So I was in Fargo. I watched you guys. It was great to see. One guy I want to ask you about, Alex Bump, seemed a little, he was quieter than he didn't get on the goal scoring sheet. Where do you think his mindset is at right now?
Well, Alex is so competitive. He didn't get on the score sheet, but we've watched the game over, and he did some fantastic things to help our team win overall, even though he
Yeah.
wasn't on the score sheet. And he's such a competitor. His brain is where it always is, and he wants to go, and he wants the puck, he wants the last shot. He's that kind of competitor where he wants all the pressure. If he makes a mistake, he'll take the heat, and if he scores a goal, he'll take the glory. He's that kind of a kid. So his mentality going in my opinion, is the same as it's always been.
Mhm.
He'll erase last weekend's no points, and he's looking forward to the next game.
Coach, I want to ask you about Liam Valente. He obviously comes to you guys in the transfer portal, and he said he was looking for a bigger role. Wanted to play some power play. He's taken advantage of all that, and he's been a big time player for you guys. I think he had an assist in all of your NCHE tournament games. He's got the 2 goals in the NCAA tournament. How does he fit into the puzzle?
Well, when we recruit kids, we look at kids that have some elite aspects to their game. Now, if they had two or three elite aspects, they're getting paid to play. They're no longer in college. Liam could skate and Liam could shoot. And we were looking to replace a little bit of speed up front. And we knew if we just put a guy in a certain spot on the power play that could shoot like him, we'd score goals. And that's all we asked of him is to be in certain spots to shoot, to start. That's to start the year. And he had great success. He fit in well. We went through some changes the way we play, where he struggled a little bit, but we got him there for a reason. And he fought through everything that we threw at him. And right now, I was just talking to coach about it the other day. Not only do we have a kid that's, I think, doubled his points from last year,
Hmm.
but we also have one that is learning to play both sides of the puck and have a little bit more than just a skating offensive game where he's learning to back cheese, work to play in his D zone a little bit more. And I think it's because we rely on him so much and we give him those opportunities to play important minutes. And I think that he's taken advantage of it.
That line with him and Grant and Zach there, it seems like they all complement each other really well. What makes them such a dangerous line?
I think their attention to detail and just doing simple things. Like no one tries to be the world beater and deke out six guys and make all these special plays. They understand our game plan. They move forward with it, and they just keep attacking. And I look at Grant. I think Grant had 18 points last year as a freshman for Northern. He's
Mm.
over 30. Zach Nearing had 14 points in USHL, and he's over 30 points in college. We put those kids together, gave them a job. They grabbed it and ran with it, and they're doing fantastic. We're really excited for that line.
And then the last thing I have is, I mean, you guys can say something not many in the country can. You've had some success against Denver, and I know there's no secret sauce to it, but I guess how have you done it so far?
Well, we just play our game. Like there's a lot of teams that will change their game according to their opponent, and all year we've just worried about us. We've just worried about how, what is it going to take for us to beat Denver? Not exactly what they're going to do, and it's how can we win. So we work on certain things that will help us win on Thursday. right? So there's no secret sauce. We're not going to pull out some special forecheck and some special double secret probation game, and it's just not who we are. We're going to work extremely hard. We're going to put pressure on them to make great plays, and a lot of times they will. And then when they do, we'll rely on Hampton, and they know we're going to work real hard. And we're going to create some turnovers, and they're going to rely on their goalie as well. But we get along great with their staff. Our kids go into battle. There's two different types of hockey teams playing against each other. And it's actually every game we've played against them been really fun for both sides. And we always talk to their coaches right after, and we always have a smile no matter what happens. And it's a congratulations or we'll get you next time attitude. And we leave shaking hands. So it's going to be a fun one for us.
All right, you guys have anything else?
I'll ask. So, Coach, I don't know if you knew this, but when I was taking down some notes, so in amongst the teams in the Fargo Regional, three out of the four were second, third, and fourth in least penalty minutes in the country. I don't know what it is now, but so you guys took the second, or yeah, you guys took the least. UMass took the third least, and Minnesota was the second least. Can you talk about kind of the discipline of your team and how you guys were able to stay out of the box so well? And when you do, your penalty kill is really good too.
Yeah, well, the penalty kill starts with the goaltending. We talked about how great our
Yeah.
goaltending was. So that's they bailed us out to make us look a lot better than we are, and we've done well against some really good teams. So that gets confidence going for 5-on-5 hockey. Back to if you look at those three teams, and I think we're a puck possession team. We try to be where we have the puck more than the other team. We work real hard on trying to get it out of their hands in a hurry to possess it. We 2-on-1 down low quick and try and get the puck out of their hands in the ozone or try and transition quick. You look at UMass, they're the exact same. They got really good skating defensemen that try and get into your hands quick and go the opposite direction, hand it to their forwards, and they play a great transition and puck protection slash ozone time game. Minnesota's the same way. So when
Hmm.
you have the puck, you shouldn't be taking penalties. And that's just the way I look at it. All those three teams, you look at Denver in a lot of ways is the same. I'm not sure where they're at ranking wise, but they don't, in my opinion, take a lot of penalties because they're skaters.
Hmm.
And you look at Boston College beginning of the game, they tried to run them out of the building, and Denver, they knew what was going to happen. They kind of said, okay, well, let's take a few hits and stick to our game and not get out of sorts because of it. We're not going to go crazy back at them. And they just stuck with their game, and I think it helped them overall. Because when the physicality didn't work, now they got to go back to their old style, and that's up and down the rink, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I look at it. And you look at, I look at our team in general. Like I think we were number one in offense. Denver was number two. Well, while
Hmm.
we're trying to play with the puck and score goals, we were also fifth in the country on defense, team defense, I believe. So we don't like to talk about that one too much because we always want to talk about scoring goals and the guys like that better. But if you have the puck, you're not defending, right?
Yeah.
And that's just how we kind of approach it, and that's how we try and recruit kids.
All right, anything else you want to add, Coach, before you sign off?
Oh, I'm glad you had a chance to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
you coming out to ice
Well,
level.
thank you, Coach.
Not a
Thank
problem,
you.
guys. You take
Safe
care.
travels.
All right. Bye-bye.
Post interview, we enter our discussion phase of the podcast. Our first team, we're going to talk about the Western Michigan Broncos, Coach Herter's team, first in the NCHC champions. Incredible season so far. Winners of the Fargo Regional. Incredible offense, great scoring defense as well. Let's start with them, guys. What are your first thoughts?
Yeah, well-rounded team. I mean, no surprise they're back here in the Frozen Four, and I mean, you've kind of seen over the last couple of years them building up to this point, right? Since Coach Firstweiler took over, they've made the NCAA tournament every year, and they've gotten close to this moment. So you've seen that work that they've put in the last couple of years, build up. Like I said, build up to this moment. So, I like their game. they've had to win some close games too. They had a double overtime win over Denver to capture the NCHE tournament, and that opening round of the Fargo regional there against Minnesota State. Another double overtime game there. So, they have to win some of those tight, high pressured games, and likely they're going to see another one on Thursday with Denver.
Yeah, so obviously, like I said, I was in Fargo. One thing I noticed, and I think this is something that Pat Ferschweiler and the coaching staff definitely want to clean up, is their 5-on-5 play against UMass in the regional final. They were dominated at 5-on-5. They couldn't get anything going offensively, which was really the main issue, and it didn't. It wasn't until Sunyev's major penalty where Western Michigan started to get going in the third, and they scored both their goals uh, on that. And Greg Carvel talked about how, we were the better team 5-on-5. Just one penalty completely changes the game. So I think that's something that Western Michigan will have to clean up against Denver, a team that is very well disciplined, very, very well structured. I mean, there's not a lot more you could say of just how good they are. Um, and you'd also like to see Alex Bump get going. You want your best players to score goals and come up in big moments. You know, I don't think it's too much of a concern. Though he looked a little quiet. He looked a little quiet um than he typically is for him taking over a game. But kind of like Anthony said, I really like this team. This is a very well-rounded, constructed team, especially they're in the Frozen Four for the first time ever too.
Yeah, you talk about the 5-on-5 play. If Western Michigan can stay out of the box and keep the other teams in the box, they'll end up doing really well. I'm just looking at some notes here right now. The fourth ranked penalty killing percentage in the country and the
And
sixth
they don't
ranked
take a lot
power
of
play.
penalties too.
No, yeah, we just talked about that with
Yeah.
Coach Herter. They definitely don't take a lot of penalties. You talk about the coaching. I mean, the calm, cool, collected mindset is definitely an asset against a strong, structured team like Denver.
It is. Yeah, it is. And they're good on the power play too. I mean, you look at their depth 5-on-5 and Western Michigan and their deep 5-on-5, but that really translates well on the power play. And I think they've got, three guys who have at least five power play goals there. And as good as they are staying out of the box and killing penalties when they do take those penalties, they're just as good, on the power play. So uh, I know it's cliche to say, special teams is going to be key this time of year, but it's true. It really speaks to, kind of how Western Michigan can check all those boxes. They're good special teams. They got the goaltending. They're good in their own zone. They've got the depth scoring. They certainly got the makeup of a championship team. So, yeah, but special teams, both sides it's strong for the Broncos. And when you're going up against Denver, you need everything to be clicking for you. So certainly a good way for Western Michigan to knock off Denver is special team success.
Yeah, the cliche exists for a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah. I got nothing more to add to that. Hit the nail
Yeah,
right
just
on
one
the head.
more note I have here. Scoring margin nationally in 40 games, Western Michigan has scored 158 goals to 82 on the opposition side. That's number one in the country. And their opponents, the Denver Pioneers, number two in the country, within 43 games, scoring 172 goals and allowing 91 goals. We talked a little bit about them already in the past couple of seconds. David Carl, one of the best, if not the best coach in college hockey right now, if not in all of America, to be quite honest with you. His structure, his discipline, his recruiting, his player development have all been outstanding. They took an early loss in the season, an exhibition to UNLV. They came back from that and they stormed through the NCHC standings. They nearly won but lost in double overtime to Western Michigan. I mean, guys, if there's any team that has experience and knows how to win a championship, it's Denver.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You can't teach that experience, and certainly, they have it. I think it's their sixth trip to the Frozen Four in 9 years, I believe is the number. Um, I I mean, you saw it against Boston College. What really impressed me about Denver in that one was BC came out with a different game plan. They wanted to be physical. They were hitting everything in sight. Carl said it himself after the game. It caught them by surprise. Eh, their pre-scout is all focused on, how to stop BC with the puck, not what their plan with the puck is. So certainly caught them off guard there. They figured it out pretty quickly. And I think that just speaks to, Carl and the coaching staff to, be able to kind of change your game plan right there at the drop of the hat and adjust against, a BC team that, we know their resume. We don't have to dive into that. And that's just the type of coaching that you need to win this time of year. And it was really impressive how they were able to handle what BC threw at them unexpectedly and adjust there for the win.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, what's not to like or not like about this Denver team? One guy I want to talk about is Eric Polkamp. He's having a breakout year, sophomore transfer from Bemidji, right behind Zeev Buyam when it comes to the points leaders among defensemen on this team. They've both been spectacular, but Polkamp has really taken a big step in his development. He eats a lot of minutes too. I'm seeing it right now. He's averaging about 22, 46 minutes a night. So that's been really impressive to see. And Jack Devine, Hobie finalist, or top 10, I should say.
William was a finalist, I believe.
Was that?
William
Yes.
was a finalist, I
I knew
believe.
there was a pioneer in there.
There's always one.
Yes, there is always one. Um, so and we can't talk about Denver without talking about Matt Davis. Like because
This is going to give
because
BC fans nightmares.
he was the story of the national championship last year. That Braden Holtby save on Ryan Leonard um
Hold on, I'm
was
just going to say this to remind myself. Roll the clip in post-production.
Smith in front. Throw. Back to. Oh, my God!
it was the save of the season, really what sparked that game, and he still is phenomenal. I mean, he's going to be the backbone of this team. You know what you're going to get at him, and he could single-handedly steal this game away from the Broncos for sure.
There was one point during that game against BC. Our colleague Mike McMahon tweeted it out. It was about halfway through that BC game. Matt Davis's career NCAA tournament stats: 0.64 goals against average, 0.978 save percentage in 375 minutes of the NCAA tournament. Just unheard of. It's unbelievable how good he is in the NCAA tournament. And Jacob, you mentioned Polkamp earlier. Keep in mind too, his role and Zeev Williams' role. Their minutes are going to go up now with I mean, they did this in the tournament, but with the injury to Boston Buckberger, huge loss there on defense for them. So that kind of throws more minutes on the back of William and Polkamp there. And I mean, obviously two guys that can handle all the minutes, but just kind of really emphasizes how important their role is, on the team and however many games they play this coming weekend.
Yeah, they're definitely going to need their top distributors firing. They have 3 of the top 10 assist leaders in the country. Jack Devine with 44 and 43 games. Zeev Boyum with 35 and 40 games. And Aiden Thompson with 34 and 43 games. I think that passing structure is going to be a big part of disrupting the collectiveness of Western Michigan.
I'd also like to add, I'm just looking at it now. Jack Devine doesn't have a goal in his last 6 games.
Oh, he's hungry.
Yeah, so he is due, similar to another guy that we're going to talk about later that also has the same goalless streak, goalless streak.
All right, we should move on. That's actually a really good segue. So we're going to move on to Penn State now, also their first Frozen Four appearance. Head coach Guy Gadowski coaching a red-hot team down the stretch, led by Aiden Fink on the forwards and Arseny Sergeyev on the back end. Matt DeMarco with the overtime winner in his home state against UConn, who was in their first NCAA tournament appearance. Guys, I gotta say, I regret not picking them to win this region on one of our last episodes of this show. I really wanted to, and I should have went with my gut because there is no hotter team in America.
No, I could probably take over this segment, this entire segment from here, honestly.
Go ahead. It
Um,
makes my
Yeah,
job a whole lot easier.
it's all
yeah,
you.
it's all me. Yeah. I mean, if you told me back in January, where this team was 40th in the pairwise or hovering around there, that they were going to finish 13th and go to the Frozen Four, beat the Hockey East champions in dominant fashion, not just like 2-1 or whatever, they crushed them in every aspect of the game. I mean, I would have told you you're crazy. I counted them out at the beginning of the year. No one was expecting this. You know, 16-2-2 in their last 20 games for a team, and they were super young, but there were so many moments where you never like to say in sports like, okay, this year feels different, because that just leads to more heartbreak. I've heard
Yep.
people say that numerous
Been
times.
there, done that.
Yeah, right. You know what I mean? But now this, it does feel different from the past because look, I've been around Penn State for 6 years now. Um, and from my time as a student, 2 years removed from graduating, second halves have never been kind to this program. So for them to turn it on and put away the second half slump demons, if you will, was just incredible, and a big reason why they're there where they are is, you mentioned it, James. Arseny Sergeyev has been one of the best goalies in college hockey. He has I don't want to say single-handedly, but when they started to get going, he was making save after save after save to the point where, like, the one series, it was against Wisconsin. It was on the road. Penn State ended up getting swept. He stole both those games. It was not even close. And then against Michigan State, at home, he stole both those games. Just on and on and on. And obviously, he went down with a lower body injury in November. That's where also things started to go down because Noah Grannon goes in against Michigan. He came in relief for Sergeyev. He was okay, and then he really struggled against Michigan. That was where the team was at its all-time low. You know, they just didn't know who they were, but people forgot, including myself also, like, this team was very young. They have good young talent. Charlie Serrato, I mean, I've once he flipped from Michigan to Penn State back in like October 23, and I read more and more about this kid. I'm like, all right, he's going to be a stud, and he certainly has. So, I mean, it's been very impressive, and like for people calling for Guy Gadowski's head, I've always believed in him, especially because you know he's an awesome person. He's a great coach, and what he's done with this program since he's been here has been remarkable in a short time. There's one moment though that really doesn't get talked about a lot, is heading into the Thanksgiving break. So after you lose to Michigan, you get blown out by Michigan. Desperate times call for desperate measures. John Seifarth gets the start. Their third goalie, who is typically, they have three goalies. The third one is kind of team culture vibes, kind of guy. And then he gets the start, and he wins both games. I was at both games, and And then he ended up starting the rest of the games until Sergeyev came back, and now he's the, backup. Um, if Penn State drops one of those games, we're not having this we're talking about either Maine or UConn or even Michigan, maybe. You know, that that weekend saved their entire season. So look, it says testament to the leadership group, the players elevating their game, um, and just a bunch of things. I could talk on and on, but I want to hear what Anthony kind of has to say about that.
I mean, I'm going to speak to Penn State from a pairwise standpoint. I mean, Jacob mentioned where they were in January. For them to make it to the NCAA tournament with an at-large bid is insane from where they were in January. And you look at it too, overtime wins are weighted differently. Essentially, they're two-thirds of a win. And when you look at kind of their January on, there's a lot of overtime wins in there. And when you look at the teams that they had to beat in front of them, that series with Michigan State beginning of the year, they split that, but their win is an overtime win. They have the two, and when I say overtime win, I'm counting shootout wins as well.
Yeah,
Um,
that was the shootout.
but they have the two overtime games against Ohio State, right? One that they win in the shootout, one that they win in overtime. Another, the shootout win against Michigan State. So they beat the teams ahead of them in the pairwise, but a lot of those came in overtime, and that's what makes it even more impressive, because now you're looking at so many of those wins counted from a pairwise standpoint as two-thirds of a win. So I didn't. I'll admit I haven't watched much Penn State this year up until the Big Ten tournament. But kind of living in the pairwise like I do, seeing just their climb from January on, you don't see that often,
Right.
especially with that many overtime wins thrown in there. So certainly impressive. And I mean, coming into the tournament, there was no hotter team in college hockey
No
than
one
Penn.
wanted to play them.
And selfishly, I remember looking at the bracket and being like, wow, Maine has the easiest path um to the Frozen Four of anybody, and then they go and get smoked by Penn State. So yeah, no surprise there. I will say, in the NCAA tournament, thank you, Penn State. They've won me some nice bets. They've rewarded me handsomely there, so I appreciate that. And honestly, I think I'm gonna probably go with them again on Thursday, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's their ability to hang into games. I had the chance to watch them. I was actually texting Jacob. I know you remember that most of the time during Quinnipiac's opener versus Penn State, and it looked like it was going to be a blowout most of the time. But
Hmm.
Penn State started creeping back, made it 3-1, made it 3-2. They ended up losing 3-2, but it made most of the Quinnipiac fans in attendance, including myself, very nervous in that situation because we knew what they could do, and they've finally started showing how they can finish the job.
Right. There was a couple things that is why they struggled. First off, they were so young. I think they couldn't close out games. A lot of that has to do with the inexperience kind of guys getting settled in, playing college hockey. That being said, though, they couldn't defend the interior if their lives depended on it. Penn State's not a team known for its defense, but it was not good. And obviously, Sergeyev going down definitely didn't help matters. But now you're starting to see them play a lot better defense. I think it started against Michigan State on the road. That's where I'm like, okay, they're starting to play better defensively. They're starting to find their structure a bit. And then against Maine, that was one of, if not the best defensive performance I've ever seen this Penn State team play. And they were without one of their better defensive defensemen in Carter Shade, who's out for the year with a lower body injury he had in practice. Um, Obviously, we alluded to it when we were talking about Divine, but Aiden Fink doesn't have a goal in 6 straight games. Teams have, like, if you guys watch that game, which I'm assuming you do, Maine and UConn were going at him hard. They would
They threw
not allow
everything but the
him.
kitchen sink.
Right. He was more noticeable. He generated a lot more chances against Maine than he did against UConn. But you see, teams are starting to shut him down, and he can't really get going. Really, his whole line, like Reese Wallback, hasn't really um, done a lot in these playoffs either. It's really been the second line of who Guy Gadowski said after it's called the animal line now. Matt DeMarsico, Charlie Serrato, and JJ Weebush. JJ Weebush is just the dog. 7 goals in the playoffs. That in between the legs overtime winner against Michigan. He's a stud.
Now Fink, near side point. Cross ice to Serrato. Out to Weebush, through the legs. Penn State takes game 1.
Friend of the show, too.
What's that?
He's a friend of the show. I'm officially
Really?
calling him a friend of the show because he liked one of my tweets.
Oh, that's awesome. So, and speaking of that, like Chuck Serrato is one of my favorite players to ever watch. The behind the back pass, like he has one more year of draft eligibility left. I'd be shocked if he doesn't get drafted this year. So, you know what? They have a tough task against BU. I said, okay, I don't think they're going to beat Maine. It's a different level. UConn, okay, I have no idea what's going to happen. BU, I think, it's another level. I don't know what to expect. I've learned if I count them out, they prove me wrong. But still, this has just been a joy to watch as someone who has been around this team for 6 years and has established relationships with players on the team, and obviously the coaches. So it's been a really fun ride to watch.
Yeah,
And
as
they're the
someone,
story of college hockey right now.
I can tell you I have experience with that count them out, prove them wrong type of mentality because Quinnipiac in 2023, I didn't know how they do against Ohio State, 4-1 win. Against Michigan, we were all pretty skeptical. We're like, I don't know if they can beat a Big Ten team. 4-2. Down 2-0 to Minnesota. I'm in a bar in New York City. I'm like holding my hands to my head, and they come back and win 3-2 in overtime. So those hot teams are always very dangerous. Never
Last Big Ten team standing
underestimate
too.
them. What are you saying, sorry?
Last Big Ten team standing too. Who would have thought?
Oh, certainly not me. Anyway, we have one team left, and as we're sort of on the topic of youth, we have to talk about Boston University. Extremely young team. Jay Pandolfo, head coach, was very disappointed with their performance in the Hockey East semifinal against UConn. He didn't hold back, and his team has responded outstandingly. 8 goals against one of the better defensive teams in the tournament in Ohio State, and then beating Cornell on what could have been a Cinderella run in Mike Schaefer's last set of games. This team could also be extremely dangerous just because of the matchup, it being 2 young teams against each other.
I give Pandolfo credit. They had the 4 head coaches media availability the other day, and I mean, he was completely honest and spot on with just this team has been inconsistent. And he challenged them after that loss to UConn, where they in the hockey semifinal, where they did not play well. He challenged them and said, "Listen, luckily our season's continuing after this. If we play like this, we're not going anywhere." And the thing with BU, yes, they've been inconsistent. You just don't know what team you're going to get, and you either get that team that showed up in the first period against Ohio State, or that team that showed up in the hockey semifinals against UConn, or you get the team that showed up from the second period of that Ohio State game through the Cornell game. And all year when they've shown up like they did in that first period against Ohio State, they haven't been able to figure it out in a game like that. So that was a huge step forward for them because they haven't been able to do that all year. So I think, where many have a lack of, myself have a lack of confidence with them, is it has been around that. And, if you ask me coming into the NCAA tournament to kind of rank my confidence in hockey teams making it to the Frozen Four, I probably would have had them second to last of that list, and certainly surprised with how good Hockey East was this year that BU is the only one standing. So I don't know, maybe Hockey East wasn't that good this year. I guess that's a debate for another day. But I mean, credit to them. They took what coach said to heart and survived that ugly first period against Ohio State. And when they're on, when they're playing like they did for 2 periods against Ohio State, and I thought they were dominant against Cornell. When they play like that, they're a top 3, top 5, whatever you want to call it, team in the nation. When they show up and they're BU of that first period, forget about it. And against Penn State, with how hot they are, they're gonna need that second and third period Cornell effort, not that Ohio State effort.
Well, I could say 2 of our colleagues were going at it in that game, Anthony. Um, so I mean that was a ton of fun to watch. You're spot on. To begin November, they lost 4 out of their first 5 games, and then they were relatively stable until February, where they just couldn't find any sort of consistency there, and they finished the season strong. In my opinion, I think there's a lot to like, obviously, about BU. It's Boston University. You typically know what you're gonna get, but now you're not really sure. But they've got good players. Cole Iserman is a stud. Cole Hudson is a stud. I say both those players first because James is an Islanders fan, I'm a Capitals fan, and they're on our team's prospects. So I think if Penn State has had a tendency to sometimes get out to slow starts, but if they get out to fast starts, they could put in 2, 3 or 3 goals in against any team in the nation. So that could be the difference for them, depending on how well they defend and how well they just get out to a good start. I can't speak to how to BU because I haven't really gotten a chance to watch them a lot. One thing I found so interesting during Jay Pandolfo's pre-Frozen 4 webinar, he said, Penn State plays a similar style to UConn, and I was kind of thrown off by that, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I I don't know. So I think it's BU. They're playing a team that they've never faced before and doesn't have a lot of experience in the Frozen Four. But if they could get out to a better start, a way better start than they did against Ohio State, I think they'll be in very good shape.
Yeah, I think things certainly turned for BU. When Yagarov came over, obviously
Yeah.
had that mishap against BC, but he was great in the bean pot. And outside of that one game, I think Providence put 4 or 5 up against him. I mean, he's been really, really solid since, and kind of injected some new blood into that team. I think for BU, it's going to just come down to their depth. I mean,
Yeah.
I really like their 3 lines. I mean, you have Iserman playing on that 3rd line. I mean, he's been amazing in the playoffs. Devin Kalpin on the right side there. He's another one that just tremendous offensive player. And then, I mean, obviously on the back end, we don't have to go and talk much about Cole Hudson because I don't know what you can say about him that hasn't been said already. So, yeah, certainly, a team that can explode for offense, but again, it just what BU team is going to show up when that puck drops Thursday night.
Yeah, let me just take a second to talk about Cole Iserman. Not just because I'm an Islanders fan, but because his status as a top prospect has changed so much. If you paid attention to
Yeah.
the 2024 draft, you'd notice he dropped pretty far to end up going to the Islanders. And I got a chance to speak with his coach from the USNTDP, Nick Four. Awesome guy, by the way. And he's a really hard worker, and it showed this season. In the World Juniors representing the United States, 3 goals and 4 assists, 7 points in 7 games, a point per game player for the gold medal team. And also this season, 23 goals, 11 assists, 34 points in 37 games. He's shown that his game isn't just goal scoring. Like, yes, it's his primary facet, but there is so much more to Cole Iserman than just his shot.
It really is too. And let's not forget, we're sitting here talking about four teams that are at the Frozen Four, but let's not forget the one that's not. And he originally committed to Minnesota and then decommitted before
That's right.
to BU. So obviously, we know what happened to Minnesota in the NCAA tournament. So if he doesn't decommit from Minnesota, most likely we're talking about them being here. And I know it's different bracket, but maybe it's not BU that's here. So it's just kind of interesting there with the way things played out. But yeah, he's such an all around just tremendous player, and you really have seen his game develop over the year. And I mean, he came out of the gate hot right off the bat, right? He had I think it was 4 goals in his first 3 games, something like that. And then here in the playoffs, he had that big game against Ohio State there, the 2 goals. I mean, quick math here. He's got 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. He's got 10 points in his last 6 games. Somehow held off the score sheet against Cornell, but yeah, he's a fun player to watch. But even when he doesn't have the puck on his stick, he has such a high hockey IQ. He's in the right spot defensively. He's reading the play well. One thing, going back to last year, he reminds me a little bit of Macklin Celebrini in the sense where I felt like with Celebrini last year is he knew where his line mates were going before they knew where they were going, and the puck was there. And you're starting to see some of that with Iserman. So excited to see him in the big stage and under the bright lights in St. Louis on Thursday.
All right, if that's all you guys got, I'm going to put all of us under a little bit of pressure here, and we're going to pick our winners of each matchup and the champion.
Oh no.
So does anybody want to start? And if not, I'll start.
What's that?
Do any of you guys want to start? Because if not, I'll start.
I'm not starting. Go ahead, Anthony.
I'm on the bus here.
I think Western Michigan is going to pull it out, but I can't pick against until somebody beats Denver in the NCAA tournament. I can't pick against Denver. So give me Denver over Penn State.
Oh man. See, I've counted out Penn State so many times. And it's tough. Because I don't want to get people's hopes up. So I will say
Put it this way, you won't be getting people's hopes up because last time I was on here with James, he asked me for a hot take, and I said BU wasn't going to make the NCAA tournament. So don't worry about that.
Did you
that was in February, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was right. Yeah, it was right around the bean pod.
Oh man.
Okay.
Must have hurt.
Yeah.
All right. I think Denver, is going to beat Western Michigan just because it's Denver. Penn State, I think, will win against BU, but then the Nittany Lions will fall just short to Denver and their kind of structured trap, because sometimes when teams play a trap, Penn State has trouble with teams against that. See Ohio State, for example. They couldn't really figure that out at times. So that's where I think Denver repeats. And this will probably come back to bite me over the next week.
Yeah, well, if it comes back to bite you, it comes back to bite me too. I agree with Anthony. As much as I want to pick Western, I admire their structure, I admire their offense, their defense, their special teams so much. But if they can't play 5-on-5 well enough against Denver, they're not going to win it.
That's a good point.
With Denver's depth and discipline, I can't not pick them. So I'm going with Denver. I'm also going to go with Penn State. I'm riding the hot hand on that one. I think they're going to win a close one, though, against BU. And
it could be like a 6-5 game.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it's like 2-1 and the goalies just start standing on their heads. You never know you never know what to expect with Russian goalies.
Oh yeah, that's right. Both goalies are Russian.
Yeah. And then my national championship pick, Matt Davis posts a shutout against Penn State. This could be a very hot take, or this could be the greatest take in the history of the show. So we'll see. But
See,
anyway, guys.
When you say shutout before it actually happens, that means it's not going to happen.
I know,
You can't say the word until it happens.
Yeah, I just bit
3-3
myself
after the
in the
first
ass
period.
there.
Yeah, especially after the first.
3-3 after the first period.
Right.
Yeah. But that's
gonna-
just the beauty of podcasting is like we get to do this and then we get to go back and laugh at these moments.
Right. I think Denver pulls it out. They're not going to get, Penn State's not going to get shut out by any means. But I think Denver repeats because of, like I said, their structure. I mean, if Penn State can, really play to their identity and in transition like they did against Maine, and Denver can't set up their 1-2-2 trap, they have a good shot to be Denver and pull off a miracle upset unlike anything we've ever seen, but it's hard not to get a bet against the Pioneers.
You guys have anything else you want to add before we sign off?
Nope, we're good.
All right, and let's head into the schedule then, because some of you might not remember when the games are, so here's a little graphic to help with that. In the schedules for the Frozen Four this week, the semifinals fall on Thursday, April 10th, with Western Michigan taking on Denver in the first game at 5 p.m. on ESPN2, and BU taking on Penn State at 8:30 p.m. on ESPN2 as well. And the national championship game with the winners of both games playing each other on April 12th at 7:30 p.m. on ESPN2, all live from Enterprise Center in St. Louis, Missouri. That's all for this week on Ice Level. Thank you all so much for coming down with me. A big thank you to Western Michigan and Coach Jason Herter for coming on the episode. A big thank you as well to Anthony and Jacob for coming on the show. This is their third appearance this season, and they've been awesome guests. They've been a great help for the show. So if you haven't checked out their work on College Hockey News already, make sure you go do that. As always, I've been James Blennau, and we're not experts, but it takes fans to grow the game. And I'll see you after we've crowned a national champion.